Great. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for part 2 of our webinar series. We really believe that the first one was an epic discussion on marketing mix and digital marketing and some of the social media feeds. And if you are not familiar with the two panelists that are with me here today, I'm going to introduce them briefly to you again. I've got Rizan Oosthuizen. She's the founder and CEO of Profile Me, awarded as a Women in Technology finalist for 2023 Women in Stature Awards. And she's also an accomplished designer and brand strategist. So Profile Me is definitely a market leader in its category. And I would urge all our viewers to go and have a look at their website and reach out to Rizan. And then obviously the other familiar face on here this morning is none other than Tim Slatter, who's the founder of Slatter Communication and also Contatu. And Tim has helped so many advisors with their websites, their online presence, building that brand. And then obviously he's very good at monthly communication and helping you with blogs and everything communication related. So thank you so much to both of them for attending this morning. If you did miss last week's webinar that we hosted, when we started with this discussion, we really touched on some interesting statistics on the social media space. And I think we touch on valuable stuff such as the strategy. We actually ended off our discussion last week saying that how important it is to ensure that you have that marketing strategy. And it was interesting. We went through all of this and then we ended off saying that people often miss it. We almost missed it in our first webinar to really talk about the marketing strategies, but it is such a crucial part. Your starting block is designing that marketing strategy. So, and I think when we ended off, one of the questions that popped up was that it's great if you now have your marketing strategy, but should we measure ourselves? Should we measure our marketing efforts? Should we measure the success on social media? Is that something that we should consider doing, reviewing the strategy annually? Maybe our guests can start this morning by answering that question for me.
Tanya, I would say absolutely. Just like a budget, even your marketing strategy, what you're going to take on is going to depend on your time that you've got available, your budget that you've got available. Are you going to outsource it? Or are you going to do it in-house? I would always recommend outsourcing. But you're definitely gonna review that, and you are going to review it on a weekly, monthly. I would say quarterly is actually just too far apart. Maybe every second month at the most, but you want to keep a tight lid on that. I mean, you don't want to be, on the one side, you can't spend too little time in a channel, a principle, or a platform, and then pulling out. I'm not getting any returns. I'm not going to be doing this social media channel anymore. I'm not going to be doing this blog anymore. You've got to give it at least, and I'm going to say 6 months for me as a minimum. You've got to give it time to build. You've got to be consistent in those areas. So you are going to have to review that, but it's like anything. I mean, why would you spend time out of your practice on something that doesn't yield you any returns? If you didn't need the returns that come from social media, say, be it leads, be it in reputation, if you did not need those returns, then my question is, why are you on social media in the first place?
So absolutely, fully agree. You do need to keep a tight lid on this, partly because especially in the digital marketing space, it's a very intangible space for most people. And most people who don't work in this arena have no idea what's going on half the time behind the scenes. And especially if you're paying for ad space, if you are paying for platform usage, you need to be reviewing that. If you're paying for an email distribution software, if you're paying for website software, make sure you're using it. We've got planners who are paying between 1,000 and 2,000 Rand for MailChimp because their databases are so large there, and they haven't sent an email out in 12 to 18 months. So, you calculate that very quickly in the back of an envelope, that's 24 to 30,000 Rand for zero. Yes. Some people are paying for Facebook ads, and as Rizan alluded in the previous session, I just say to guys, just get off Facebook as quickly as you can. Whether it's ads, whether it's a page, there's a handful of people who make Facebook work, and they work very hard at that, and then that's great. But if it's not working for you, hop off. As Rizan was saying, if any platform's no longer giving you return, after you've given it a good time to try, hop off there. Something
I'm going to interrupt you
yeah.
on that, because that's actually a very good point. And I want to ask you, do you think it goes towards all ad spend, Google ad spend, Facebook ad spend? I mean, there's a specific time and a specific industry, right, where those things start to make sense, but not necessarily now, not for an advisor, not in a smaller business. Am I right in making that? Or
you are, and I do have a very biased view on paid for exposure, because I come from a PR space, and the whole thrust of PR is to get free exposure or very low cost exposure. It's based on your connections. It's based on your authentic existence in a community that you're sharing, and people like want to talk about you for whatever reason. That's what we look at. Whereas marketing is very much more in the paid for space, and we'll pay for this ad, we'll get it, and then we'll come back to you with an ROI saying you've got this amount of views, you've made this amount of sales. So marketing is very useful when it's campaign driven, and I often use the word product driven as a broader, kind of view of that. So, marketing is about campaigns and promotion, whereas PR is more about brand relevance, presence, relationship. And you can achieve a lot of that purely by having a blog strategy, by having a website or a Profile Me space that you can share easily, that, and all of those do cost you some money. But in terms of ads, I mean, ad spend, you're going to be looking at a minimum of about 5 to 10 grand a month to get any kind of basic traction. And that's whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Instagram, Google, it's going to be huge. And a lot of those ads, from our experience, are based on keywords and search engine optimization criteria that are actually not really relevant to individual financial advisor practices. Mm. If you're a big brand, if you're a fund, if you've got a big product you need to get out there, then it makes sense. But if you are relationship driven, if you are looking to get a core client base of 100 to 150 people, you don't need thousands of likes on your pages. You don't need every single post going viral. One word we used earlier in the previous session was influencer. And, financial planners, I think they sometimes hit social media thinking they need to become an influencer. And it's easy to confuse the concept of being an influencer with having influence in your network. It's like that whole expression of, you may not mean much to the world, but you may mean the world to someone.
We have seen ads with some of the big corporates that is on Profile Me with us. They, for instance, would run an ad on the Profile Me on Facebook, on Google Ads as well. And we see exponential click rates on that. But it doesn't mean there's a conversion. Why would you want 13,000 of the wrong people if you can have 3 of the right people just by doing it through the contacts, your existing word of mouth contacts? But again, you want to make word of mouth digital. You want to make it from a 1 to 1. You want to make it to a 1 to many. So I would definitely say, if you're thinking about running ads, you've got to have a big budget, and it's got to be done properly. You've got to get a good campaign together. But I do see value in running ads that promote you within a local area. So, for example, if I'm going to use Pretoria, say you're in Pretoria East, I would look at what businesses and what kind of people is in my local area. I would make a name for myself as the trusted expert, and not on all principles, at least just on a few. In that area, look at how you can run SEO, how you can run Google Ads so that you can show up better in search in that areas. And then look at the local businesses. I mean, having sponsorship where your face or your logo pops up on other places where other people are carriers or distribution mechanisms for you is, I mean, that's exponential. That to me is word of mouth in a many sense. And beyond, we haven't touched on it, but I just want to mention it before I finish off. Google business pages, there's a ton of data on Google business pages. They're totally free. They're absolute pain to set up, yes. But Google business pages, the data shows that pages that are properly set up. You've got pictures there of your practice, of what it's like doing business with you. You can have a ton of stuff there. It's going to help for your search. We know that search, highest country in the world, it's going to help how you show up in search. And also, the data says that businesses with more than 100 photos, I know that seems a lot, but over time you will get there, get 500% more calls.
I wanted to, last week, Razan, you mentioned the amount of content people should post or being consistent and regular. It might be an unfair question, but I think people do, they might get scared thinking they have to post every day. And while there are stuff where you can schedule your content, tools that you can use for it, do you think there's a specific number? Like, is there a sweet spot almost, like you have to post daily or you have to post weekly, or does it depend on the social media platform you use?
So again, why my opinion is unpopular with marketing people is the specific number is consistency. That is the only thing that is specific. So we work with places where, and by no means is social media our core business. Our core business is Profile Me, but we have a couple of extra, projects to keep our creatives, creative. And by far, the budget allows for, say, a Tuesday and a Thursday, for instance. And we consistently do Tuesday, Thursday. By that time, the advisors know Tuesday, Thursday, my new content comes out. They're supporting it. They're sharing it to their clients. Now their clients are coming back Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're looking out for this.
And I think, Sim, you might actually have some stats, because I know on the MailChimp side, you actually taught us again at Amity a bit about scheduling on certain days or optimizing those scheduled times. But I must say, I resonate a lot with Razan in the sense that it's not always as effective for South African audiences. That I've also picked up that sometimes there might be a bit of a glitch there in the algorithm or in the tools. But do you want to add on to what she mentioned here?
Yeah, so, our approach is to say post as often as is sustainable for you, because you want to keep it going. And people often set these lofty goals of, I'm going to do a weekly blog. And then 3 months later, they still haven't done one. If you take, as we said in the previous session, if you take a longer piece of content and break it up, it allows you to do less work in terms of the content creation and schedule the distribution. So then blog writing, which typically is a lot more time consuming, is done less frequently, but sharing of content, sharing of perspectives from that blog can then be done more regularly. I've got a strategy that I use with people we're doing training with called the 3 minutes, 3 times a week strategy. It's a long title. But the goal is to say, most people think, well, I spend less time on the loo in 3 minutes or making a cup of tea. So that's immediately our brain's like, I could probably do that. 3 times a week, that's manageable. I could do that. And if you do that and you start to see results, you will be motivated to do it more regularly or to do it for a little bit longer. And when you've got that motivation and you're seeing, and now this comes back to the return, you're seeing, wow, people are responding. Clients are talking about their blogs that I'm writing in our meetings. I'm getting email responses from our email campaign. I'm seeing people are opening it 5, 6, 7 times. And now I know that I can reach out to that person. And in my database, these 5 people need to chat to me this month. That is now valuable because it's again, we're not being consumed with the tools and the platforms. We are connecting with our clients, and they've helped us decipher and filter who needs to hear from me. What do they need to hear from me? Boom, let's do it this month. So our rough guide is try and post a minimum of 3 times a week and go on for 3 minutes initially and do 3 things. The first thing is to create content. So you share something from your website. Second thing is to engage with your network. Go and like a few things, comment on a few things, check your notifications and see who's responded and make sure you get back to everyone. And the third minute is to intentionally build your network in the direction you want to go. So if you're on LinkedIn, for example, to build your professional career and you want opportunities for work, then you need to be connecting to people who might employ you. If you're going onto LinkedIn to get clients, then you need to be connecting with people who are existing clients or potential clients, not colleagues, not product providers. So you do that for your third minute. Boom, you do that 3 minutes, done. Try to get 2 to 4 blogs out a month. And the reason why we look for multiple blogs a month is because everyone's in a different life stage in your database. And if you see your blogs as a conversation sparker for different things, not everyone wants to know what's going on in the budget speech. Not everyone wants to know what's happening with the war in Ukraine. Not everyone wants to know the difference between a trust and another financial product, right? There are other things happening in life, and you might want to speak to them about speaking to your spouse about money and how do we do that? How do we talk to our kids about money? You might want to speak to people about what's going to happen when I die. As Razan said in last week's session, I don't need risk cover. I need to know that, the problem is I'm going to die. And how do we have those tough conversations, either with your planner or with your family? When you start to create blogs around that, people are like, oh, that's interesting. I'll read that. I'll share that. And then it becomes shareable content. And then if you're sending out one newsletter a month, it's far enough for people not to feel like you're spamming them, because where social media, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, because of the algorithms, you'll probably never spam people from your posts. You can post 5 times a day, 10 times a day, and the algorithm will distribute it neatly. But emails, you can really upset people if you're sending it too frequently. So we look at a month because it's far enough to not feel spammy, but it's close enough to think of, wow, I'm often hearing from my planner, because that's one of the things we need to overcome. The messages of this profession is that people feel like financial advisors are just around to sell them a product. Yes. And some of that comes from, well, the only time I ever hear from my advisor is when we need to upgrade or buy something new or do something different. But if I'm hearing from my advisor just to stay in touch, it creates this relationship environment where they care about me, they're listening to me, even if there's no reciprocity. This perception starts to grow. And this is what PR is all about. PR is about managing these perceptions, recognizing they exist and going, how do we target and direct them in ways that everyone benefits?
Yeah. And I think, I'd want to add on to that, WhatsApp really, I love WhatsApp as a marketing channel. It has evolved and grown into a channel, a legit marketing channel of its own. Now, WhatsApp, which, we used to have broadcasting, we still do, but I think they're phasing that out. Then you've got admin-only groups, something that you could do. They've now got WhatsApp channels. But one of the best things that I like about WhatsApp's, one of the best features for me is WhatsApp status. Now, and I've seen it work so well over a period of time. Advisors would just go there's a decoding the day, and there's a decoding the week. It's a provider that provides this. They simply go take a screenshot and they put it on their WhatsApp status every single day. Now, for the contacts that do go through statuses, they see this. Yes, okay, you're still alive and kicking. You're still knowing what's going on within investment or whatever it is, and even if it's sourced content from whatever it may be that you think suits your brand and your niche, that is where your PR will come in. But it's status for me is especially for the people that are wary of the dailies or so about the frequency. WhatsApp status is non-invasive, and you'd be amazed about when you share some behind the stuff about you and your practice, how responsive people are to that. We've seen huge successes. I often put on my WhatsApp status as soon as I do cold water swimming. As soon as I put a cold water swimming thing on, I've got like 5 people in my professional network contacting me.
A useful piece of information I found the other day was that we should consider to repurpose or recycle or reuse content. And it's not just, again, for some of the algorithms that you keep relevant, that, you can go back to an old blog on your website, change one sentence, and some of the SEO rankings could even stay the same or improve. So, there are small tweaks like that. But I just thought it's very nice in the sense from a time constraint perspective that you also can just go back to some of the blogs and reuse it maybe in a different form. And it was interesting because I read someone posting that if you take and I mean, Tim, you mentioned, I think this twice now, but if you take a very long article that you wrote, right, you can potentially do the following. You can create 3 Instagram posts or reels if you're on Instagram, 10 tweets from that, because Twitter is very short form as well, 1 newsletter, and 3 YouTube shorts. So immediately, if that was now your social media platforms, you literally took 1 blog or 1 long article and you were cross-marketing it over all these platforms. And I just thought, that's such a useful, almost, free advice. Use it. It's something that's simple. It's usable for many people. So, but when I look now, and I want to maybe move on to another point quickly, is that it's interesting to know with all these stats, the usage of LinkedIn versus the usage of Facebook. But then for me, it's very interesting to also know the generational gaps and, which generation is actually using this. Because, I was quite shocked to see that baby boomers and millennials enjoy Facebook, so, I thought, it would be your Generation Zs, which apparently they prefer YouTube more than they do some of the other platforms. But even if you consider then this, it makes you realize that you should firstly go back to your strategy, who's your target market, and then decide from there which platforms you'd like to use. Because if you don't want to necessarily advertise or market to a Generation Z or whoever now is after the latest generation, you would most probably not go onto TikTok. YouTube, it seems, is very attractive to a large audience. So what's your view on video marketing?
If we look at the different demographics, and those stats are available in terms of which South Africans per age group is on which platform, and which age group are you most likely to reach via XYZ. So some of the stats is that if you're looking to reach anybody between the age of 25 and 64, your number one place is going to be chat and messaging. It's sitting at 95.3% or something like that. Your number two place is going to be social networks. That's sitting at 94%. Number three is search engines. So you want to have a profile, you want to have a website, you want to show up in blogs, you want to show up in your LinkedIn, those things. So if we just look at the top three, that is chat and messaging, social networks, and search. The number four is online shopping, and number five is maps. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this is for everybody from 25 to 64. But the ages 24 down, the demographic is completely different. The way they use the internet, the way where you can find them, it's a completely different ballgame. If you look at that younger demographic, TikTok is massively, popular with them. I myself am a very big TikTok fan. I don't create content, I just consume it. Just interesting to note that, and just side note and back to the algorithms, I was shocked to see on TikTok the other week that a person, and he gets so much engagement, saying that, oh, you should absolutely cancel your will. These are all the reasons you should not have a will. Now, because this post is getting so much engagement, it is showing up in so many feeds, although it's absolutely rubbish advice. Now, the problem is TikTok doesn't know what that guy's saying. There's no way for TikTok to know that whether he's saying get a will, don't get a will is valuable. Yes. All they know is that it's getting engagement. Now, the problem is, and this is going to be the big problem with digital financial literacy for Gen Z, is that there's not enough other people saying the correct stuff that is also getting engagement on those platforms, so that there can be some kind of evening out and learning curve. So on that part, I would say, if you're making any form of video content, doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's compliant, it's true, and it's correct, you're doing the industry as a whole as a favor to even out the algorithms a little bit.
And I'm actually glad, Razan, that you've touched on this, because I think it's a very good closing for our discussion at all. But how do we protect ourselves in a sense? We see the FSCA came out again with companies being impersonated on Telegram, which is now another social media platform or platform you could potentially consider. But yeah, so there's impersonations happening. Then there's just exactly what you referred to now, the whole industry being at risk by finfluencers, let's call them that. That's not regulated in our space. It's still, there are very few countries that has actually gone out with certain regulations on this front. So I'd like maybe just a brief, in closing, from both of you, something that advisors just can consider, if they are scared, now they have to move on to the social media side, what's the stuff that they can do to protect themselves?
the most dangerous words in the English language have been said to have been, this is the way we've always done it, and this is the way we're going to keep doing it. And then the pendulum swings, and I've discovered some more dangerous words. And it's, well, everyone else is doing it, so we're going to do it too. And when it comes to this approach, it'll sink your boat. So I love the word boundaries. I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, so it's something I struggle with. It's something I'm not good at. So it's a challenge to me. So boundaries resonate. And I have found in my own life, you start with the boundaries on when is my phone accessible? When is my email accessible? And you start to apply that then to the new realms in which you're engaging. Razan said earlier, only stick to as few platforms as you can, and just 2. I say just go with 1, because most advisors we deal with are not on any yet. If you are prolific on social media and it's your game, then go for multiple ones. But if it's new and it's something you've got to stretch a little bit into and flex, then keep it to 1, maybe 2, so that you can be on top of all the updates and what's going on. Because there are platform updates, there are app updates. Suddenly your phone pings with a different sound, and you're like, what's this now? And then suddenly a regulation changes and you're getting different types of notifications via email. And if you're on 5 or 4 platforms, it's going to become completely overwhelming. So you start with boundaries, and with your strategy, once you've got your who, your what, and your why in place, then you go, which platforms are going to be best for us to engage with? And we stick to those. You don't try and find a new platform every week, because there will be new opportunities every single week. It's exactly the same way financial advisors help clients put together an investment strategy. Next week, there's a new investment opportunity. So do you sell everything there and buy there? No, you don't. You've got to choose something and stick with it for a good length of time, because it's time in the markets, not timing of the markets. And you don't necessarily invest with the people who have the most assets under management. That could be the people with the 9 billion trillion views or users. You don't invest with the people who've just introduced a new vehicle for whatever. You stick to what's in your strategy. And, as clients come to advisors for strategies, and Razan alluded to this in our previous session as well, outsource this. So I think it was at the beginning of this one. Get someone who knows what's going on in the communication space, who knows what's going on in marketing for financial advisors. We have so many advisors who come to us who've spent tons of money on websites, strategies, ads, with great marketers, with great companies, but they just didn't know the industry or the profession. And that's where the shortcoming was.
I've just got 2 things to add. The more authentic you're going to be out there, the more difficult it's going to be to impersonate you. If you're going to be generic, it's easy to be generic. So you want to set yourself apart. When you set yourself apart properly, there are more people that is going to know your style. Just for slang word style, to know that this is not you. From a tech perspective, and from somebody that works in tech and owns tech, your passwords, your biggest thing, you might get a couple of trolls or something like that, and that's not good. And you must have a clear response handling strategy ready for that. Just remember, response handling is something you've got to take that person offline as quickly as possible, but you've got to give them a channel where they can vent their frustration, and you've got to keep in communication. So it's always better to say, get their email and then funnel them to an email communication from them. But in terms of your password, if we're talking about cybersecurity in that sense, we see passwords is the biggest problem across the board, where somebody is going to get in there and be able to, get your data, log into your account, post on your behalf. A lot of the hacking stuff that happens is because there's not adequate password. You yourself don't have adequate password protection, or you're just sloppy on the password side.
Guys, thank you. Thank you so much. Honestly, I wish I didn't have to end the conversation, because I think we could have gone on for another hour or 2. But I really appreciate so much of what you've given, in terms of that some of this stuff guys can go and implement themselves. But I do agree that get someone professional to help you and guide you and coach you. And I mean, just as we as financial advisors will go to a client and tell them the same story, you know, we'll coach you, we'll advise you. I think it's very similar for your business, for your strategies, your marketing strategies. And for everyone on the call this morning, thank you so much for attending our second webinar. Both this session and the previous one will be on our YouTube channel. Yes, we do have all those social media channels, and I would like to urge you to go and like them, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on these social media channels, just to be sure that you don't miss these type of webinars. So thank you again for attending. Guys, thank you so much for you to be on this panel discussion, and we hope to have the same and similar conversations again in future. Great. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.